Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. This is the Thrive Bites podcast, and welcome to season 5. Here we talk about 3 things: plant-powered living, enhancing emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And I interview the most passionate guests here, ranging from physicians to coaches to dietitians to entrepreneurs. And my hope is to give you really informative and high-valued conversations. So please follow us here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and wherever you hear your podcasts. Come on in, and I can't wait to see you inside. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites. We have a wonderful show for you today. I'm going to be talking with my guest, Lizzy Cangro, and she is an author, nutritionist, a wellness coach, and also a physical trainer. She goes and highlights her journey with eating disorders when she was in the beginning of her journey in her mid-teens. And she shares with us her challenges, what she had to go through, and ultimately how she was able to pull herself out of that. She uses a lot of, self-reflective life experiences, resources, and ultimately is taking all those experiences to be able to help women being able to reclaim their rebel, per se. And she does it in great fashion. She highlights, the process of how she does this, and pretty much, what women go through in terms of how they talk to themselves, how they treat themselves, all the challenges they have to deal with society. So it's a great episode, and I encourage you to stay tuned. So we'll see you inside. Okay, guys. Well, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. You could have been anywhere in the world, and you decided to share your precious moments with us here today, and I am very, very happy that you did. So, we have a great topic of discussion. I have a great guest for you today. Her name is Lizzy Cangro, and she is the founder of the Reclaim the Rebel Academy, and she's also an international author. In addition, she's also an expert nutritionist, wellness coach, and she has a passion for helping other women silence their inner mean girl. I love that. And we'll get more into that a little bit later. And she helps them to confidently step into their body that they love. She has a very unique framework, and it consists of 12 rebellious acts in nutrition, movement, and mindset that empowers women to feel amazing in their bodies, even if they spent years at war with it. Her new book, Reclaim the Rebel, basically got published end of last year, outlines these game-changing tools in an easy-to-read and practical format with exercises to accompany each rebellious act so that readers can transform the way they can see themselves and their bodies as they progress. It's really like you're having your best friend on your bookshelf, and I can't wait to dive deep. Please welcome Lizzy. Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to your listeners for tuning in. It's so great to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. I did pronounce your last name correctly, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And also, what a beautiful introduction. Thank you. So.
Oh yeah, thank you. I don't have the movie voice, but we'll try to make do.
No, you really do have a great voice for podcasts. So I absolutely love your voice, and people always say to me, oh, I love your accent, and I'm just like, what accent? I don't have an accent.
You don't really know until you step out of, your native country, right? And you're like, what are you talking about?
Absolutely, yes.
Let's first ask, where are you calling from today?
I'm actually, I now live in Los Angeles, but I'm calling from Arizona. So I'm on a work trip right now in super, super hot Scottsdale. So my little English skin is sizzling, but it's beautiful out here. I lived in LA for 3 years now. So.
Okay. And before that, you were in the UK for a little bit, or were you just travel all over?
Yes. So born and raised in the UK. I studied at Cambridge and then did my master's degree in London. So kind of stayed in that vicinity for a while, and then came out to the US to really pursue my career in nutrition. And a lot of things kind of transpired, met my husband, and now here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, Arizona is very, very different. LA is also very, very different. I would presume. I've only been to London once, and love it. I just remember the clouds, the grayness. I'm just like, this is kind of like Seattle, a little bit like the Pacific Northwest. So, but everyone was very, very lovely, and lots to do, lots to see. Obviously, a lot of history and culture. So yeah, it's a very, very good time. Do you visit often?
Well, the pandemic somewhat kind of slowed that down. We were going back every kind of 6 months, but that kind of got stalled. And then I applied for my green card, so I couldn't travel outside the country. So we are eagerly awaiting to be able to go and visit again really, really soon. So yeah, I have my
hopefully things ease up. Yeah,
yeah.
hopefully things ease up pretty soon. So so I can't wait to dive right into it. So let's the first question is the origin question from point A to point B. I love asking my guests this is, how did you get here? Right? You said that you studied, in Cambridge, and you spent a lot of time there, but not just physical location and the traveling and, meeting, your partner now, but how did you arrive to saying, hey, I want to pursue more nutrition and wellness and coaching, and then, seemingly wanting to, focus more on, women and the ups and downs that females go through. We were just talking a little bit about this offline, and just, it almost seems like being their advocate, and being their cheerleader, because it just sounds like a very, very tough go at it. you know what I'm saying? In terms of, how we treat ourselves, internally, within the mindset. And, over the pandemic, a lot of us, if not most of us, have gone through some up and downs, in terms of mental and emotional challenges, whether it's with ourselves in terms of our self-talk, whether it's with, a relationship, a partner, or your family. Relationships have definitely been tested. But to me, the most important relationship is with ourselves. So before we get, into the nitty-gritty, how did you arrive here?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. And it really begins when I was 14 years old. And I, like many people, I think, who are so passionate about this in the wellness space, I had my own journey to achieving wellness, achieving unconditional love for my body, and really making peace with myself. And as I say, it all started when I was 14 years old, and I developed an eating disorder. And I talk about this a lot more in my book, but essentially my granddad died all of a sudden from a heart attack. And through my naivety, I thought I'd somehow contributed to this, because a couple of days before I'd baked him a lemon drizzle cake, which is his favorite. And he was going through chemotherapy. And I thought, what better way to make him feel better than to bake him a nice cake? And so somehow I linked his death to this cake and started reading in magazines. At the time, it wasn't really social media, it was magazines, about how I could eat healthily and nourish, my friends and family with healthy foods so that it didn't happen again. And this resulted in me consuming a lot of bad advice, non-expert advice, and getting myself into a very ill position, both mentally and physically. And so I suffered with this eating disorder for about 10 years until one day I got diagnosed with osteoporosis, which if the listeners aren't sure what that is, it's essentially weak bones. And it's something that in the Western medical kind of world is something that is not curable. It's believed to not be curable, and is associated with postmenopause. And in that moment, I did not identify as somebody who was postmenopause, and remember thinking, okay, now I have to really do something about this. I really want to get well. So I started, following the advice of my GP. They gave me very kind of specific nutrition recommendations and movement recommendations like Pilates. And I started sort of following that and actually did deeper research into nutrition from trusted sources like the National Osteoporosis Association. And through that, my passion for actually nutrition reignited. I'd kind of lost that connection with my food. And I decided to go on and study for my degree in nutrition. At the time, I was a teacher. I was a primary school teacher. And I just changed careers because I knew that nutrition was what I was meant to do. I was meant to help other women so that they didn't have to go through what I went through. So I studied my degree. I learned more about nutrition from, reputable individuals and sources. And through that, started my own business, Nutrition by Lizzy, specifically to help women with their nutrition. The story doesn't stop there, though, because a lot of women were coming to me from their personal trainers. Who would find that clients wanted to lose weight, et cetera, and go to their trainers first, as opposed to going to a nutritionist first. So I got a lot of referrals from these personal trainers. And so I thought, okay, well, why don't I learn about personal training and become a personal trainer and incorporate movement into what I do? Because I'd had my own struggle with, punishing myself with exercise also. So that became a huge passion and what I did. So I went over to America and studied at UCLA fitness instruction. And during that time, the pandemic hit. So along comes the next component of kind of my journey. And I realized that whilst I had a very healthy balance in terms of my physical nourishment, how I was moving my body and how I was nourishing it with my food, I still had some very self-abusive behaviors in terms of my inner mean girl and what she was saying to me. And so I went on another personal development journey where I really learned how to silence that inner critic and find inner peace and become my own cheerleader. And so that has really become my purpose, because I have gone through that, 15-year journey of actually discovering how to be kind to myself, actually be my own best friend, so that I can enjoy life. I can have those quality relationships with others. But that really all starts with the relationship that I have with myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate, you sharing that. Eating disorders are, are really, I remember going through my training, I trained as a GP. And we pretty much learn a little bit about everything. And eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia nervosa, and all other kinds can be very, very detrimental to the point where, some would need hospitalizations, some, would get as far as the intensive care unit in terms of needing care, to psychiatric, care. And sometimes you would need a large part of it is multidisciplinary, approaches, because it's not just the quality or quantity of food. It's about, like you said, the mindset, kind of like how we were talking about, offline. It's really in a way, the self-abuse that you do in a way, that's one way to look at it. And it could be, due to many, many, different things. how was it just based off of nutrition and physical activity? You were able to kind of, jump through the hurdles of your own, challenges with eating disorder, or where did you find the greatest help, from all this, or was it a combination of everything?
Yeah, that's another great question. Essentially, I was that individual that had to go into the A&E or ER room because I was struggling on my own for a very long time, a couple of years, and my parents tried to kind of do it themselves in terms of helping me eat more and look after myself more, and it just didn't work. So they took me to the doctor one day, and the doctor couldn't even, take my blood. My pulse was at 30 beats per minute. And he said, okay, you're going to the emergency room. And so that was really kind of like a very big shock to me, because I wasn't aware of being ill. I was just the person who was trying to be healthy. And so from that moment on, it was really a journey, not only of what I just described, but of letting people in to help me. So I had a care team in the community for about a year, and then I actually had to go into a psychiatric ward and be an inpatient for the summer after I sat my GCSEs, which is what the exams that you take at 16 years old, so that I could go on to college and sixth form college, so like 16 to 18 years old in the UK.
Yeah, it's very different here.
Yeah. But I was
Us Americans were like scratching our heads, like, what is that? So many acronyms.
Yeah. So my parents to be able to kind of really trust that I would be able to handle being alone and take responsibility for my food. I went in as an inpatient over the summer, just between kind of finishing those 2 points in school and starting at the other point. So, and actually, that inpatient time was so crucial for me, because I had a lot of support from psychologists, from an art therapist, from a family therapist. And it definitely helped me in terms of my weight gain and, improving from a kind of physical perspective. But kind of, it was like a dormant volcano. And I was still somebody who had a lot of low self-esteem, low self-love. And so when I went off after discharge to college, in inverted commas, the 16 to 18 year bracket of education, I actually got worse. So probably about 4 years, I was struggling with knowing that I had a problem and also not being able to fix it. And I was very ashamed, because I felt like I'd failed my parents. I'd put them through a lot already, and now I couldn't be responsible for my food, and I was still really struggling with my body and my body image. And that kind of all changed when I did get my diagnosis. I went to the doctor after feeling like my lower back was aching whilst I was on my shift at Starbucks. It was my first job. And I kind of did that in secret, went to the doctor and said, hey, like, what's going on? She did the bone scan. And the shock of being diagnosed with this meant that I had to open up to my parents and say, this is what's happening. I really need help. So that was really a big moment for me in terms of letting people in, being vulnerable. Because I think for so many of us, whilst my experience is very specific to me, I think a lot of us try and, deal with things on our own, because we feel like being vulnerable is a sign of weakness, or, not being able to deal with this on our own is a sign that we're kind of like not good enough or something. That's absolutely not true. It's like when you're running a race, these marathon runners, they have to run the race, but they have a support team behind them that's kind of there cheering them on. And that's kind of like the analogy that I now like to use, because, without that support team, it's going to be very difficult to actually, make it through that race. So whilst you're struggling along trying to carry that weight on your shoulders, you're actually doing yourself a disservice, and you're actually doing other people a disservice because they love you and want to help you. So that's a very long answer to your question, but I definitely had phases where I had different people helping me, and I like to now say it was my cheer squad. That's kind of that's how I like to talk about it, and it's an honor now when people invite me to be part of that cheer squad, because I know what it takes sometimes to ask for that help.
Yeah. No, that's super important. And as you were, referring to a marathon analogy, I was thinking about, the first marathon that I ran in New York City. And it does take a village, whether it's raising a kid or, or any other mental, emotional, or physical endeavor. You would hope that there is a huge support team and, rallying, behind you. I know how I got here, was not an individual effort. It's on the shoulders of many, many different people. So, number one, thank you for sharing, so much of those, intimate details and everything. I am curious. A lot of, we do talk about osteoporosis on this podcast, and a lot, very, different from, how they're diagnosed. You're absolutely right. Postmenopausal, a little bit more elderly, advancing age, sedentary lifestyle, things like that. A lot of times they don't know until they actually suffer a fracture. So did you by any chance break anything, or you just had back pain when that happened?
Yeah, I just had back pain, and I was ultra aware of the potential issues that could come with my eating disorder because it was spelled out to me. The kind of issues with your cardiovascular system, with your bones, and so I, at that point, was very aware that I was still struggling. And when I had lower back pain, I thought, oh, this is kind of something that I need to look into. So I didn't suffer a fracture, luckily. But what I found was I had the osteoporosis in my lower back. And that was a big shock.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that, you're feeling better now. You look radiant and, ready to take on the world and help others. So I again, I appreciate sharing the story. So please let us know what you mean by, the inner mean girl. What does that mean for those that don't understand what that is?
Hey guys, if you are interested in having a consultation with me and actually see me one-on-one, the Chef Doc Lifestyle Medicine practice has partnered with Plant-Based Telehealth, and we offer lifestyle medicine consultations. So you'll be able to see me one-on-one, and I can go over your health history and seeing what we can do to fill in the gaps. We can talk about your physical health, anything from food to lifestyle to diet to setting up your kitchen to cooking preparation to grocery shopping to your mental health. I think it's important that we build our emotional resilience to talking about your sleep and how to stay hydrated and what are the best medicines if necessary, what are the best supplementations if necessary. And we do all this in a very concise manner, and it's a conversation. I take the time out to listen. I take the time out to really understand you from the ground up and to look at all aspects of your physical, emotional, and mental health. And please, drop me a line, schedule an appointment if you want to see me one-on-one. And I am very, very looking forward to learning more about you. And again, thank you so much for visiting here at the Chef Doc.
Yeah, so we all have one. Our inner mean girl is essentially our inner critic. It's that voice in our head that we hear sometimes daily on repeat when we look in the mirror, look at our bodies, try on some clothes that don't necessarily fit us the way that they used to. And she just shames and judges us for not only our appearance, but who we are as partners, colleagues, how we're doing at work. And she can be very, very loud from time to time. So really, my passion is helping individuals, particularly women, because I can speak from, experience, to silence that inner mean girl, move through those moments where she is really, really loud, and to reframe her negative stories into ones that feel more aligned to feeling good. Because no matter how long we've kind of like been on this journey to actually being kind to ourselves, to, having more love for our bodies, she will probably pop up from now and again. We're all human. So it's not necessarily about getting rid of her, because what she's actually trying to do is she's trying to keep us safe. But safe doesn't always mean that it feels good. So safe is predictable, and the predictable story is I'm not good enough, or I'm not capable enough, or I'm not worthy enough. And so she'll play that on repeat to kind of keep us from changing, what we do with our lives, or kind of how our lives look. But that doesn't feel good. So when she pops up, all we need to do is learn how to reframe things so that, that loud voice kind of quietens down, and kind of say to her, it's okay, loving my body is safe, feeling confident is actually a safe thing for me to have. It's okay to go online and to show your body, on the beach, or to, do some of the things that maybe some of us would kind of feel a lot of resistance to. So that is essentially our inner mean girl. And she's very much like a toddler. The more that you try and ignore her, the more she will scream.
No, that's a good analogy. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to suppress anything. In my other lines of work, is really about not suppressing things. I'm personally would like to get things off as soon as possible, right? But sometimes we develop these habits of saying like, maybe a little bit later I'll bring it up, or now it's not the right time, or what would people think of me if X, Y, and Z, right? And so you just give yourself kind of like a how do you say it, a way out of not actually addressing the actual issue in the room. You know what I'm saying? So my next question to you is that, in terms of females, which is, your focus, what are the common, challenges that women deal with, nowadays? And what are some, misconceptions, when, they kind of go about it? And I would say a bonus question is, has this changed over time? Because as a guy, when you're looking at, magazines and commercials, and now social media, has been pretty much, the new form of media, it doesn't seem like much has changed. I would probably argue things have, gotten worse, because a lot of different platforms utilize the visual aspect to portray things. And, with softwares of editing and filtering, it just creates this illusion that this is actually reality, and it actually would warp one's view on, okay, this is what I'm supposed to strive for in terms of a body image. So what are the common challenges, misconceptions, and has anything changed over time?
I would agree with you that it hasn't necessarily changed, and if it has changed, then it's got worse, just because of that ability for, I think, us to have those images in front of us even more prominently and more frequently than, say, for example, when I was a teenager growing up. I would really hate to be a teenager growing up right now, just because of the amount and the frequency of these kind of like not necessarily helpful images of what a body should look like. And so what I have noticed, though, changing is two things. First of all, the ideal body type has definitely changed over time. So in the 90s, when I was growing up, it was very much kind of the stick thin models. And now kind of going into the 2000s and even kind of up till kind of today, it's kind of gone to the very kind of curvy body types with a tiny waist, but that kind of hourglass. So the kind of goalposts of what ideal is keep moving. So that's another way that it's actually got worse, is that women are bombarded with all of these messages of you need to have a perfect body. But the goal keeps changing. So it's going to be even more confusing. But the other thing that has changed is, I think, actually helpful. And that is people like me, people like you are actually talking more about this stuff. And I think people are becoming more empowered to actually, share and talk about these things and authentically connect with other people about their experiences so that we don't feel so alone. And that is the beauty of kind of social media and the internet, is that we can connect more than ever because things like eating disorders are so isolating. I remember feeling like I was on my own for such a long time. And so it is really, I think, helpful to be able to share our stories and kind of create that community where we go, okay, yeah, I see you. Maybe I don't understand exactly what you're going through right now, because not everyone has been through an eating disorder or whatever, but it is great to kind of, have these places where people can actually feel seen and know where to go to get that support. So I think that is helpful. But the underlying issue is still there. And that is that we have this huge multi-billion-dollar industry called the diet industry that is essentially making money off of us not feeling good in our bodies. Because if we felt good in our bodies, we wouldn't need their products and programs. So essentially what happens is that we come in at an early age, when our bodies are changing as women, the ages of kind of 10 can be younger now. And we feel our bodies changing, and that feels very strange and it can be confusing. And that's when kind of social media and, messages surrounding us from our family and our culture come in about what a body should look like. And then the diet industry comes in and says, oh, haha, we have a solution for you. Yeah. And we buy into the products and the programs. And in doing all of this, we're actually reinforcing that belief of I'm not good enough. When I have that ideal body that keeps changing every few decades, then I'll be enough. And so we enter this kind of like vicious cycle of not feeling enough and chasing the next product or program that sells us that idea of you're not good enough. And these programs don't necessarily work. They might work in the short term, like maybe you lose 10 pounds in a month, which is a different conversation about how, healthy that is. But, people will buy into these programs because they're so desperate to actually get the body that they've always wanted so that they can finally, feel enough, finally, feel good. And results may last for like a month and then, back to square one a month later. And, if we do this again and again and again, by the time we become adults and we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, we are so demotivated and frustrated and just kind of sat there going, whoa, what's the next thing coming my way? I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And then that gets reinforced by our inner mean girl when we look in the mirror, because we can see, a distorted image of what good enough means. We don't necessarily match that. So it's a very toxic cycle that is none of our fault. I think that is the biggest misconception to answer your question on that. Is that it's all our fault, and it is not our fault. And so I just, if anything, want to empower women to take back that ability to really feel confident in their bodies, because we're all born feeling confident, right? You look at a newborn baby and they're obsessed with themselves, like their toes, they're just kind of like smiling and just giggling. And so we all have that ability. It's just we lose it over time through, as I say, that combination of our environment and our own inner mean girl. And so it's really about reclaiming that for ourselves and pushing back on some of the messages that surround us every day. And boy, that is not always easy, but it's something that is entirely possible. If I can do it, after all of the years of self-abuse, I know that it is possible for anybody to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great, how you broke it down. I appreciate that. It's and when you were talking about toddler, I was actually thinking about my my cousin's daughter that was just born not too long ago, a few months, and just came back from a wedding, and the first time I, met her. And she was just playing. She's only a few months old and she's already giggling. She's happy. She's like, not sucking her thumb. She's sucking her toes, because, they're all flexible, right? So it was, and I think about children, and I think about how much they are so encouraged and reinforced in terms of whether they produce good habits, or even if they make mistakes or trip up, they're encouraged to get back up. They're encouraged to, keep going. It's okay, because people associate like, oh, they don't know any better. They're young, they need instruction. We all want to be able to help them up. But it's interesting how over time, it's literally the reverse, where it's not supporting you, it's not encouraging you, it's not applauding you, it's more taking you down and making you feel bad. It's, and it's, and this is highlighted in high school, all the way, to modern day society and, media and all that stuff. So, and you're right, it isn't our fault. I think that besides sleep, we're literally bombarded all the time with some sort of advertisement or distraction. And I would argue that, we're even more distracted than ever before. So to me, it sounds like you agree, it's becoming more and more of an uphill battle. So that leads me to the next question is, if it's, all these different things that are bombarding us, and seemingly it's almost like we have to focus back on our own voice and own mindset and, our own self-talk. How do you assist other women to kind of create that environment of a supportive environment, of a nurturing environment? How, do you set up that process of kind of helping them get back to their own voices? I know that, you have a coaching program, and you probably don't want to, say it all, but just kind of, maybe just kind of walk us through, like, what does that look like? The first initial steps.
Yeah. Well, the first step is just being aware of, of this inner mean girl voice, because we walk around for years and years and years, potentially not even being fully aware of the really self-abusive things that we're telling ourselves. And when we have that sudden awareness of what we're actually saying to ourselves, it's kind of quite shocking, because many of us would never dream of talking to our best friend, our mom, our sister, in the way that we talk to ourselves. So step one is awareness, because if we're not aware of some of the mean things that we're telling ourselves, we can't change those thoughts. So it's really important that we become aware. Some people like journaling. Some people kind of will have a conversation with a member of their cheer squad, like their friend or partner, and kind of say, like, am I saying some negative stuff about myself? And so other people can be a really good mirror for our own negative self-talk. So there's different ways to kind of do that, but step one really is that awareness, so that we can kind of move on to step two, which is reframing our negative thoughts that we do have. So I like to use the analogy of when we wake up in the morning, we go to our closet and we pick out what clothes we're going to wear for the day. So today I was feeling kind of bright and sunshiny, so I wore my coral color outfit. But then another day, you might put on, some jeans or something. So we get to pick what we choose that aligns to our mood and, how we want to feel in that day. And we can do that with our thoughts. So it's all about being aware and then aligning our thoughts to actually how we want to feel. So if a thought pops up, we have that awareness of it. We can go, oh, is that actually aligned to me feeling good in my body? If not, we just scroll through the clothes rack and choose another thought. And that really is kind of the key. And if we're able to do that consistently with self-compassion, because we're not always going to get it 100%. Sometimes it's going to be harder than others in different scenarios as well. But it really is a practice. And once we can kind of, have that consistent practice, we'll soon notice that we become kind of our own expert in changing our negative beliefs. So, it's like anything, that we start off doing, we might suck at it. So the first couple of tries, beginners are beginners for a reason. But then, through practice, we become so effortless in what we're doing. And that includes choosing thoughts that are kinder and less self-abusive. So that's really the process that I kind of take women through. And use different tools to do it.
Yes, of course. And, on your website, you have a coaching program, you have, your book and stuff like that. And definitely we'll go more into that a little bit later. So, we're coming to a close. My last, question that I love asking, my guests is, it's all about creating a thriving mindset here. And I love how you're talking about, what am I going to choose, and which emotion am I going to pick, what feelings I want to, kind of put out forth into the world. And, and this is, what I'm, dawning on, and, this is how I feel. And I think that's great. Are there other things that help you to thrive as part of your daily, routine? What drives you to continue to keep doing what you're doing? What lights your fire? What is that for you? And, and how have you incorporated that into your routine and lifestyle?
So what kind of keeps me thriving and keeps me doing what I'm doing is just my passion. And I feel a very strong purpose to do what I do. I feel like it's my responsibility and my kind of my soul's contract to help in the way that I do. So that is kind of what keeps me going. But that kind of relates to what I do in the mornings, which is a really key habit for me to keep me thriving through that. So what I like to do every single morning before anything else is I spend 20 minutes doing a self-hypnosis and visualizing either how my day's going to look or how my kind of life looks, how my ideal life looks. So it depends, but I will have that time in the morning that's just for me. And that is kind of creating this vision for myself and how I want to help others. And it's a really, really strong, how do I say this? It's a really strong way of showing that I matter by physically putting myself first every single day. Because isn't it so easy to wake up, get on our phone, see what the notifications are from our social media, check our emails, and kind of get straight into the day, putting everything else before our own needs. And I found that for such a long time before I learned this art of actually taking just 20 minutes. It doesn't even have to be 20 minutes. It can be 5 minutes if you're, a really busy parent and your kids are kind of like, Mom, get up, or Dad, get up. But taking that time for you right at the start of the day is a great way of visually kind of showing yourself that you matter. And it's a really nice way of setting yourself up for the day. So I highly encourage anybody to give that a try. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's really, really effective.
Yeah. I personally do the Miracle Morning. If you ever read that book. So I wake up, I give myself at least like 3 hours of self-care and personal development. And I agree with you. It's totally super important because it helps give back enough time, silence, solitude, and self-care that you could show up a better version for others, because in some way, whether you're the postal, serviceman or the trash collector, we're all serving humanity on some aspect or level. And I feel that when your own cup isn't full, there's really nothing to give. So it's important to kind of, fill that up as much as possible. So, so thank you for sharing your routine. So, I definitely want to let the audience know how people find you. Where can they reach out to you? Can you talk a little bit more about your coaching program and where they can get your book?
Yes. Well, thank you. So the best place to kind of find me and connect is on Instagram at Nutrition by Lizzy, Lizzy with a Y. And if you're interested in my book and finding out more about that, it's www.reclaimtherebel.com. You'll be able to find all the info about that, read some reviews, and actually purchase the book. And in terms of my coaching program, I offer both group self-study and one-on-one coaching, and all of that is available on my website at nutritionbylizzy.com. Again, Lizzy is spelled with a Y. So just
awesome.
Come over and say hi on whatever platform you feel like.
Yes, there's so many to choose from nowadays. So
yes. Oh my goodness.
Well, Lizzy, thank you so much for showing up, for us today. And, I really appreciate your story. I think it's a powerful, message and example to let others know that, despite the trials and tribulations and, challenges that we go through, which includes external and internal, that, we can always triumph and, really, leap over. And it takes a lot of individual work, the support team that you were talking about, the cheer squad, right? The cheer squad.
Cheer squad, yeah. And I actually have a Facebook group. So if people want to join the cheer squad for 3, then they can.
Okay. Go to your main website. They can find that too.
Yes, they'll be able to find that under the extra resources section. So, or just head to Facebook and Google Reclaim the Rebel, your cheer squad. So, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So thank you so much, for spending the time out and sharing, your experiences and wisdom with us today.
Of course. Thank you again for having me. It's really an honor to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much for watching another episode of Thrive Bites. If you like this, please share, like, and subscribe and comment. And if you feel that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And until then, please say goodbye to Lizzy. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that episode. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you like this, please like, follow, and subscribe. And please follow us for the latest updates for this season, season 5. And if you feel that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and YouTube. And thank you so much again. And we will see you on the next one.